The Raiders had one of the best drafts this year, and definitely one of the best drafts that we've had in recent years. One thing's for sure, I don't think anyone is complaining about the Pete Carroll signing anymore. The Raiders went into this year's draft with 9 picks and came out with 11 picks. With so much holes to fill on the roster, I believe the team has done a great job filling in those needs. So in today's video, we will be going over every single pick that the Raiders have made in the 2025 draft, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and even a final grade on how I think about this draft class overall. But before we do start with this video, of course, like always, if this is the very first time you guys are coming across this channel and you love Raiders content, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. We are on the cusp of 50,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Now let's start off in the very first round with the 6th overall pick. I know a lot of people had so many different questions, so many different predictions on what the Raiders could do. Heck, I even thought the Raiders could have went out and got a quarterback or even got the #1 wide receiver at number 6. But at the end of the day, the Raiders went out and got the best running back in this year's draft class. Heck, maybe one of the better running back prospects in the past couple of years, selecting Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Now, I know a lot of people might think that I hate this pick. I know a lot of people might think that I don't like Ashton Jeanty, but that's far from the truth. I always said that he is the best running back in this year's class. I just felt like the Raiders could have went in a different direction at this pick because I don't think the drop-off was that big at the running back position, and plus I had other running backs that I really liked in this draft as well. But that does not mean that Ashton Jeanty is a bad pick at all, and I'm not mad at this pick. I'm actually excited now even more, just thinking about everything and just thinking about how this offense could look, and especially how the whole draft panned out later on, which I'm gonna kind of talk about all the other picks that we did have, makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about this pick moving forward. I understand that the Raider Nation was hyped up about this pick, and rightfully so. We finally get a running back to help the running game, and knowing Pete Carroll and his history of running backs, one thing's for sure, we know that he loves to run the ball, and Chip Kelly loves to run the ball as well. And especially having a veteran quarterback like Geno Smith on the roster at the quarterback position, it's good to not only have good protection around him, but also have a running game to help complement the passing game, which I feel like Ashton Jeanty will definitely do. Jeanty will definitely be a day 1 starter for the Raider, an immediate impact player, and I think that's one thing that I can say that, you know, I love about this movie is because we don't have to worry about how long it's going to take for him to start or even kind of come into his own. And knowing the Raiders' history in the first round and knowing how many projects that we've taken, how many reaches that we have taken in the first round, I can't be mad at this move at all. I can't be mad at this pick because we got a guy that everybody unanimously had the Raiders selecting at this pick. Not only helps the team out, but also helps the Raider fans and gives us hope that we could be better next season. Funny enough, Ashton Jeanty has come out and said that he already kind of had a feeling that he was going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders, not because of the Raider fans, but for the mere fact that Max Crosby actually spoiled it and texted him the night before, saying he did text me last night and, you know, he said ready to go to war with you. And I was like, shoot, I'm ready to go to war with you too. But, you know, yeah, I mean, once he texted me, I was kind of like, man, it's really feeling like I'm going to the Raiders. And, you know, it happened. Funny enough, though, I actually got to catch up with Max Crosby. You know, after we selected Ashton Jeanty, I met him at Resorts World, and this is what he had to say about the pick as well. He kind of basically admitted that he did text him the night before.
Hey, I'm fired up. I was texting him last night, you know. I didn't know if he was going to get drafted or not, but we manifested. He's with us. He's an absolute dog, man. We can't wait to, you know, get to work. So
now I know I can yap about this pick for 20 plus minutes, but you guys already know the deal with Ashton Jeanty. We all talked about Ashton Jeanty, whether people wanted him or not. We know that he was the consensus #1 guy, and we know what he's going to bring to the Raiders, so I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And one thing that I'm kind of interested in seeing is whether or not he's going to tell Daniel Carlson to, you know, give up that #2, but we'll wait and see what he's going to be rocking at the next level with the silver and black. Now going into the 2nd round, the Raiders initially had the 37th overall pick. As you guys already know, the Raiders traded down multiple times with the Dolphins and the Texans to acquire 2 extra 3rd round picks and even a 4th round pick, but they finally made a selection at number 58, going out and selecting wide receiver Jack Bech out of TCU. Now initially this kind of surprised me. I felt like there was other wide receivers that I had a little bit higher on my list, but I'm not mad at this move at all. Bech is one of the most underrated wide receivers in this year's draft class, has that size and athleticism, standing at 6'1", 214 pounds, versatile to play wide receiver on the outside and even the inside. He was a former tight end turned wide receiver. Bech also has some of the best hands in this year's draft. only dropping 1 pass. He's also shifty in the open field, and on top of that was the Senior Bowl MVP, scoring a walk-off touchdown. Of course, if you guys know a little bit about Jack Bech, he has a great story behind him because of his brother Tiger, who passed away earlier this year, and everything that he's been doing since that point has been going out there and giving it his all, not only playing for himself and his family, but also playing for his brother. This is another solid pick for the Raiders, bringing in an immediate impact player. I feel like he's going to be a guy that's easily going to start day one as well at the wide receiver position. I don't know where he's going to play, but I feel like he complements Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker well in this wide receiver room. And one real important trait for me, and I feel like was one of the big reasons why Pete Carroll and John Spytek went with Jack Bech over a lot of these other wide receivers, was the simple fact that he loves to block, and he's a guy that does well with blocking, excels at it, and it only helps the running game out, especially if we want to make the running game the primary of the offense. It's good to have not only linemen that can block, but have wide receivers that can block. And that's something that we see with Jacoby Myers as well. So having a guy like Jack Bech that can be a playmaker, but also help out in the running game is really huge for this team. And you could just tell that he's ready to put on for the nation just by the way he talks to the coach and even the motivation that he has for his brother.
It's been like a whole different presence about me. You know what I mean? Like I tell these teams, they not only get me, they get Tiger too. It's a 2-for-1 special deal. Even just going back to the Senior Bowl, I just felt like I was out there. I just couldn't lose no matter what. I just had this extra presence about me. And then just late nights, early mornings, waking up to go grind throughout this whole pre-draft process. It's really just pushed me, and it's taken me to places that I didn't even know my body could go to. I've always worked hard, ran the extra mile, but this definitely put a whole new level to that, but just a whole new mindset of just I don't care who's in front of me. I'm going to win regardless of what's going on.
Bech also got to visit his brother at his grave after being selected and posted this on his story saying, "We did it, Tiger. Love and miss you more and more every day." Overall, I really love the story, great story, and a lot of motivation for him to go out there and ball out. And what better team to play for than the Las Vegas Raiders? And if we could get the best out of him, I feel like he could be one of the key pieces for this team, and not only this team, but this offense moving forward. We got a lot of playmakers here with, Brock Bowers last year, and even adding Ashton Jeanty to this roster. We got a lot of young players that can help this team move forward and hopefully excel into the playoffs and get a lot more wins under our belts. Now moving on to the third round, the Raiders with the 68th overall pick selects cornerback Darian Porter out of Iowa State. One of my favorite picks in this year's draft. I would say, I guess, one of the guys that I actually got right in a mock draft. I mean, I've done many mock drafts, and most of the players didn't really end up on the team, but Darian Porter, wide receiver turned cornerback. You guys all seen the comparisons, of course, reminds us so much of Richard Sherman. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be the next Richard Sherman. I'm not going to say that he's going to be at that same level, but he has all the intangibles to get to that level. With, Carroll's leadership and guidance, especially with Patrick Graham on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like Porter can be one of those immediate impact players. And I think so far in this draft, the Raiders went 3 for 3 with immediate impact players. These are 3 guys that I feel like can easily start day one for this team. Porter shows a lot of athleticism, especially with that size and speed, standing at 6'3", 195 pounds, also running a 4.3 40. Not only that, he's a physical cornerback that is also versatile, that can play cornerback on the outside and inside, and also is a player that is not afraid to get dirty and special teams. He's a guy that actually wouldn't mind playing on special teams and could help elevate the special teams as a gunner and even as a defender, blocking multiple punts in his college career. I believe that Porter has all the tools to be a great cornerback under Pete Carroll and is the perfect fit that could come in and play a huge role for this team moving forward. And not only that, if anything, adds more depth to the cornerback room. Ironically enough, like I said earlier, I actually mocked him in the third round with the 68th overall pick and a mock draft that I did earlier this offseason. So it's kind of crazy to see him coming over here to Las Vegas, and I'm just excited to see him play. He's going to be a guy that we definitely got to keep our eye on, because I do see him making a lot of impact plays on this team, especially with the release of Jack Jones and the need that we have in the cornerback room, especially with the cornerbacks that we did bring in, some veterans that we did bring in. I believe that his future is bright in the silver and black. So overall, if we're able to get at least 50% of what Richard Sherman was for that Seattle defense and Darian Porter, then hey, I think this would be a great pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, with the 2 additional picks that we had in the 3rd round, with the 98th overall pick and the 99th overall pick, the Raiders went back-to-back offensive tackles. First, let's talk about Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech. Now, Caleb Rogers is an athletic, physical blocker who fills in the gap in the run game. A highly experienced starter, Rogers has played a lot of football and proven himself to be a durable, steady player. Now, he's not perfect, and I can see some of his limitations pushing him inside as a guard in the NFL. Now, overall, Rogers is an experienced tackle guard prospect with proven versatility, good play strength, and anchoring ability to suggest that he can carve out a backup role at either spot early in his pro career with a skill set best suited to earn starting time on the inside. Now, the other offensive lineman that they drafted in the 3rd round was Charles Grant out of William & Mary, one of the most underrated picks that the Raiders have made in this year's draft class, and I've heard a lot of good things about him, especially from a lot of scouts, and it seems like he's a guy that the Raiders can definitely see becoming an impact player sometime in the future. Now, Grant has quickly become one of the favorites for many scouts this offseason, and it's easy to see why. He's a very technically sound prospect who makes very few mistakes and has great footwork. In fact, he had the 2nd highest zone run blocking grade in the country according to PFF. Once again, the Raiders are doing a great job of finding players who fit what they like to run. This is a great sign that everyone in the new regime is on the same page and working closely with each other. The main area of concern with Grant is his level of competition he faced playing in the FCS for all 5 years of his college career. He also didn't participate in the Senior Bowl, which is usually a great opportunity for players of lower level programs to show that they belong. He also didn't test quite as well as expected on his pro day. If he can add some upper body strength without losing athleticism, he can develop into a starter at either guard or at tackle. And I guess a crazy fact that I found out was the fact that he most likely is a Raider fan as well, and had a feeling that he would be a Raider when being drafted.
2025 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas
What?
Raiders select Charles.
And look at him now, man. Of course, he's a fan, and I'm more of a fan of him now because he was a Raider fan. And just seeing all the hype and the love that he's been getting across the media and even scouts makes me a little bit more optimistic about this pick. Now, moving on to the 4th round, we actually had 2 picks in this round. The first one, at number 108, the Raiders selected another wide receiver, Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Now, I talked about this before, the most Al Davis pick that we had in this year's draft, because we know that Al Davis loves that speed. And thinking about a guy that stands at 6'3", over 200 pounds, running a 4.3 40.
My neck and my back.
Thornton is an explosive vertical threat who can beat defenders deep and turn any catch into a touchdown. While he needs to refine his route running, he brings solid depth to a wide receiver room that offers exciting upside as a project player with big play ability. Now, he did show his athleticism at the NFL Combine by running a 4.3 40. Like I said earlier, having one of the fastest times recorded, and also recording a 33-inch vertical leap and a 10.6 broad jump. Also, to add on to all of that, another thing that he does well that we know that this new regime loves as well is the fact that he's a willing blocker, and he can go out there and not only catch the ball but be a blocker. Now, he's not great with his route running down the field, but he wasn't really used much in that aspect. He was one of those guys that just on a go route, you throw it down deep, this is the guy that you want to go get. It's crazy that we got another big body receiver that can actually run as fast as one of those small receivers. I mean, he ran a faster 40 than Trey Tucker did last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do in this offense this year alongside of Jack Bash, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, and everybody else that we have in the wide receiver room. Now, moving on to the 135th overall pick, the second 4th round pick that we had in this year's draft, the Raiders go out and select defensive tackle Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina. Now, that's definitely a name for sure that's going to be kind of fun to hear on Sundays. And up until this point, this is only the 2nd player that the Raiders have selected on the defensive side of the ball in this year's draft. This move does add some depth and versatility to the defensive line, addressing a position that has lacked significant investment earlier in the draft. Hemingway, standing at 6'3", 284-pound defensive lineman, is known for his durability and versatility. Over his college career, he's played in all 48 games, showcasing consistent performances. In his senior year, he recorded 32 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups, and 6 quarterback hurries. His ability to disrupt plays and his high football IQ make him a valuable asset for the Las Vegas Raiders. Overall, drafting Tonka Hemingway addresses a need for the Raiders and adds a player with potential to grow into a significant contributor on defense. I don't think that he's going to be an ideal starter day one, but he does provide some depth and also some upside and potential to start in the future. So, hey, I can't be mad with the Raiders adding more depth to the defensive line. Of course, I felt like there was a lot of other players that I would have rather selected at this spot, especially a quarterback that was still on the board, but it is what it is though. Now, the Raiders wouldn't have a pick until the 6th round. And finally, when it came time at the 180th overall pick, the Raiders went out and selected another defensive tackle, J.J. Pegas out of Ole Miss. Now, he's the guy that I felt like could have went a lot earlier, but good thing for the Raiders, we selected another defensive lineman that could add more depth, like I said, with Hemingway. And this is a guy that just kind of goes with the theme of everything, versatility, and a guy that I can see excel in Pete Carroll's defense. Known for his strength, ability to control double teams, and can finish using change of direction quickness, Pegas also has good hands as a pass rusher. Now, he was used on the offensive side of the ball as well as a fullback on short yardage situations, scoring 7 touchdowns in 2024, showcasing his power and athleticism. Not only that, Pegas started his college career as a tight end before transitioning to the defensive line at Ole Miss, showing his versatility. Now, I know that we didn't get Travis Hunter, but we got Travis Hunter at home, basically J.J. Pegas. Now, I do believe that this is a huge value pick for the Raiders here in the 6th round. You know, a versatile athletic defender that can contribute on both sides of the ball and can contribute into a key rotational piece for this team in the future. Now, another pick in the 6th round with the 213th overall pick, the Raiders went out and finally addressed the quarterback position, getting quarterback Tommy Mellott out of Montana State. Now, first, I'm not going to act like I knew anything about this guy when we first drafted him. And second, it seems like he's actually not going to be playing quarterback. He's going to be the Edelman type of quarterback that goes receiver into the NFL. And this is a guy that, like I said, staying on the theme of things throughout the whole draft, is a versatile player. And this guy can basically play all over the field and can be used in so many different packages. Now, shout out to my guy, Mock Masters on Instagram, and they're the guys that put me on Max Crosby years ago before we even drafted him. He hit me up and said that Mellott was one of their favorite picks of this year's draft and told me that the Raiders really got a good one here. Not only is Mellott a slot wide receiver, a wildcat quarterback, a gunner, and kick returner, man, he does all of the above. One of the most exciting and underrated prospects in the class and could be a signature pick for John Spicek and the Las Vegas Raiders. And you know what? After hearing that, it kind of makes me a little bit more excited about it. I'm not going to have my expectations too high for him, but he's definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to keep an eye on going into the offseason and even in training camp and maybe even the preseason. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Raiders utilize him in this offense or even in special teams. Now, with the 215th pick in the 6th round, the Raiders actually got another quarterback that will most likely play quarterback at the next level, bringing in Cam Miller out of North Dakota State. Miller is a dual threat quarterback, throwing for 3,251 yards, 33 touchdowns, and had 4 interceptions last season. He also ran for 48 touchdowns in his career. He will definitely get a chance to compete with Aiden O'Connell and Carter Bradley for a roster spot this season. Funny enough, both Mellott and Miller faced off in the FCS championship game last year. Now, both of them are with the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, you guys know how high I was on Shedeur Sanders, and I felt like we could have easily got him in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round even. But up until that point, it just really seems like the Raiders were not high on Shedeur Sanders, and they were not going to select him at all, especially passing on him, a total of 9 times in this year's draft. But to see that the Raiders went out and got Cam Miller in the 6th round, it just seems like the Raiders wanted to go in a different direction, and they weren't really high on a lot of quarterbacks coming into this year's draft. I mean, they passed up on Will Howard, they passed up on Quinn Ewers as well. So Cam Miller is the lucky quarterback that gets to play with the Las Vegas Raiders. But one main reason that Cam Miller brought up why the Raiders really wanted to select him and why he felt like he was selected by this team was the fact that the organization wanted to bring in players that were used to winning already, saying, I haven't had any interactions with Tom Brady, but from every conversation that I've had with GM John Spicek, he has talked to me about how they wanted to bring in people that are winners and who have been accustomed and used to winning games. And I think that was really the X factor in their choice of taking me in the draft. Now, at his time at North Dakota State, he did win 2 FCS championships, so maybe he's right. I don't know how much of a winner he's going to be in the NFL, but you know, the sky's the limit. I'm not going to expect too much out of him in year one. Who knows if he makes the final 53? But if he does get his chance or opportunity to play, I hope he goes out there and just proves why he was the right selection for the Raiders moving forward. But as far as right now, I don't really see him getting a lot of PT anytime soon. I look at this more of a developmental pick for the Raiders, and it is what it is. It seems like the Raiders are just going to stick forward with Geno Smith, AOC, Carter Bradley, and Cam Miller for right now. And with the last pick in this year's draft for the Las Vegas Raiders in the 7th round with the 222nd pick, the Raiders finally addressed the linebacker position, a huge position of need for the team, which to me, kind of sus why we had to wait so long to get a linebacker. But we went out and got linebacker Cody Lindenberg out of Minnesota. Now, Lindenberg, with his experience, leadership, and run defending ability, he provides a valuable depth piece to the linebacker core. Given the Raiders' recent changes at linebacker, Lindenberg has the opportunity to contribute on special teams and potentially earn a defensive role with this team. I've honestly been hearing a lot of good things about Cody Lindenberg, and even shout out to my guy Tristan Kuhn on Twitter. He's one guy that was really high on Cody, and you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to add any kind of linebacker to this team. I'm just kind of surprised that we didn't address it a little bit earlier, but he seems like a guy that, of course, like all these other picks that we've had in, you know, 6th round and up, most of them are going to be like lottery picks. We don't know what's going to happen. They could either be great players or they're just going to be depth players or special teams players. But he's a guy that I'm really going to be looking forward to watching on the defensive side of the ball. Now, overall, grade that I would give the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders have been getting a lot of love overall, and I think this is one of the better drafts that the Raiders have had in recent years and recent history. There's a lot of questionable picks that I might have had here and there, but looking at the broad picture, I think the Raiders did a really great job. And funny enough, the Raiders received a lot of praise from a lot of different media outlets, getting really high grades. I mean, you look at AP, they gave the Raiders an A. NFL.com gave the Raiders an A. CBS Sports gave the Raiders an A. PFF gave the Raiders an A. Sports Illustrated gave the Raiders a B. New York Post gave us an A-, and Bleacher Report gave us a B. Really, really high grades. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your draft looks on paper, but we got to actually see them go out there and put it on display. There's been a lot of teams that had bad grades, but actually had a great draft. But hopefully the Raiders can live up to all the high grades that everybody's been giving us. Now, I will say that I would give the Raiders a B+. We addressed a lot of big needs, even though we didn't get a quarterback, which I really would have wanted a little bit earlier. I think the Raiders did a lot of job addressing a lot of positions, especially positions of need. And looking at the Jeanty pick, the Raiders got the best player that they wanted, especially filling a position of need. You go out and get guys like Darren Porter in the 3rd round, and get a guy in Jack Best who, of course, like I said earlier, kind of surprised me at the time, but looking at it, you got 3 immediate impact players right off the rip. Then you go out and add some offensive line help with those other 2 third-round picks, and then we address some solid depth pieces later on in this year's draft. So outside of all of that, I say the Raiders did a great job for the first year under Pete Carroll and John Spytek. I really feel a lot more comfortable going into the offseason, seeing the players that we brought in, seeing the players that we drafted, just the type of characters that we brought in to help with this culture. I just can say that I'm really, really excited. But Raider Nation, let me know what you guys think about this Raiders draft. Do you guys feel good about it? Do you guys feel confident about it? What's your favorite pick? What's the worst pick that you see from this draft? And what grade would you give the Raiders? Let me know down in the comments below, man. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for always supporting the channel, man. Until next time, this is your boy Small Raider and your boys. Yeah.